Hey guys, what's up? Today I have a little Wallcraft update for you, where I pretty much updated all racial abilities. For example, he also changed the creature flag on certain races. For example, Forsaken are now considered as undead and Tauren are now considered as beasts. I would say let's get right into the human racial abilities. So we have crossbow specialization. Skill with crossbows is increased by 5. We have this good old diplomacy. Reputation gains increased by 10%. We have the polearm specialization. Polearms are increased by 5. Then we have the night watch. Shadow resistance is increased by 1 per level. So at level 60 we will gain 60 points in shadow resistance. Resistance is really important on Warcraft. Then we have sharply dressed. Tailoring skill is increased by 15. Perception increases your chance to hit with attacks and spells by 100%, and it dramatically increases stealth detection for 20 seconds, so you notice this is already reworked. Then we have the sword specialization. Skill with swords and two-handed swords are increased by 5. And last but not least, we have the human spirit. Spirit increased by 5% and damage done to undead is increased by 5%. Let's move on to the dwarven racials. Alright guys, as you can see we are an old iron forge, and let's have a look at the dwarven racials. We have find treasure. Allows the dwarf to sense nearby treasures, making it appear on the minimap, last until cancelled. Then we have the axe specialization. Skill with axes and two-handed axes increased by 5. Then we have this gun specialization. Gun skill increased by 5. Then we have born on an anvil. Blacksmithing skill is increased by 15. Then we have the mace specialization. Skill with maces and two-handed maces is increased by 5. Then we have the mountain dweller. Frost resistance increased by 1 per level and immune to frozen death. And frozen death is part of the weather system. On Wallcraft the weather functions a little bit different, but this I will tell you on another video. Drunken brawler. Strength increased by 5%. You gain an additional 1% crit chance when drunk. That is really nice flavor. Then of course we have the stone form. While active, grants immunity to bleed, poison and disease effects. In addition, armor is increased by 10%, lasts 8 seconds. Alright, let's move on to the night elfen racial abilities. Alright guys, now on to the night elfen racial abilities. As you may notice, this beautiful place is the night elfen racial housing area. I made a video about this. If you're interested, link will be in the description. Really beautiful place. We have natural gifts. Nature resistance is increased by 1 per level. Then we have bow specialization. Skill with bow weapons is increased by 5. We have quickness. Agility increased by 5% and chance to be critical struck by physical attacks reduced by 1%. Then of course we have shadow melt. Activate to slip into the shadows, reducing the chance of enemies to detect your presence. Last until cancelled or upon moving. Night elf rogues and druids with shadow melt are more difficult to detect while stealthed or prowling. Then we have the fist specialization. Skill with fist weapons and unarmed increased by 5. Then we have the staff specialization. Skill with staffs increased by 5. Then we have Kaldorei magic. Enchanting skill is increased by 15. Then of course we have the wisp spirit. Transform into a wisp upon death, increasing speed by 50%. Alright, I would say onto the gnomes then. Alright, we are back at Old Ironforge in Tinkertown. Let's go over the racial abilities. We have dagger specialization. Skill with daggers increased by 5. Then we have safety goggles. Arcane resistance increased by 1 per level. We have the escape artist of course. Escape the effects of any immobilization or movement speed reduction effects. Then we have throwing specialization. Skill with throwing weapons is increased by 5. Then we have expansive mind. Intelligence increased by 5% and you gain an additional 5% mana for 30 minutes after reading a new book. That's really nice flavor, I love that. Tinker. Engineering skill increased by 15. Hazard suit. Chance to avoid area of effect damage increased by 10%. Then we have wand specialization. skill with wands increased by 5. Some nice racial abilities. Alright, next are orcs. Alrighty, there we are, back at the Barons. Axe specialization, skill with axes and two-handed axes is increased by 5. Fist specialization, skill with fist weapons and unarmed increased by 5. Gun specialization, skill with guns is increased by 5. Then we have Blood Fury, while active increased all stats by 20% but causes 3% health loss every 1 second, last 10 seconds. Then we have Hardiness, chance to resist stun and knockout effects by 10%. Then we have Blood of Manoroth, which is a really flavorful thing, I would say. Shadow resistance is increased by 1 per level. Then we have Command, strength increased by 5% and damage dealt by Hunter and Warlock pets is increased by 5%. Then we have Slave Labor, also really flavorful. Mining skill increased by 15. Alright, Undeads are next. Let's have a look at the Undead racial abilities. First we have Apothecary Society. Alchemy is increased by 15%, really nice one. Lichborn, pulled from the grave, you are now undead. Intelligence increased by 5%, you cannot drown and no longer need to eat, drink or sleep. This is really flavorful, I love this. Cannibalize. When activated, regenerates 7% of your total health every 2 seconds for 10 seconds. Only works on humanoid or undead corpses within 5 yards. Any movement, action or damage taken while cannibalizing will cancel the effect. Soldier of the Frozen Wastes. My god, I love this. Frost resistance increased by 1 per level, immune to frozen death. You know, because you are basically a Lich King's minion, or an escaped one that is. Then we have Crossbow specialization, skill with crossbows increased by 5. Then we have Sword specialization, skill with swords and two-handed swords increased by 5. Then we have Wand specialization, skill with wands increased by 5. And then, last but not least, we have the Will of Forsaken, provides immunity to charm, fear and sleep while active. May also be used while already afflicted by charm, fear or sleep. Lasts 5 seconds. Alright, now on to one of my favorite races in World of Warcraft, the Tauren. First we have Bovine Endurance, stamina increased by 5%. Tauren are considered beasts by their enemies. Then we have Mace specialization, skill with maces and two-handed maces is increased by 5. Then we have Bow specialization, skill with bow weapons increased by 5. Then I love this this icon here. Natural state, nature resistance increased by 1 per level. Then we have cultivation, herbalism skill increased by 15. And then I love this, you know, this was supposed to be in vanilla World of Warcraft and now it's in Warcraft, you know. Plainsrunning increases your running speed. Your movement speed increases slowly until reaching max speed based on your level. You cannot use Plainsrunning in combat, underwater or indoors. I will show you this in a few. Then we have Staff specialization. Skill with staffs increased by 5. And last but not least, the good old War Stomp. Stuns enemies within 8 yards for 2 seconds. Let's have a look how fast I will be. I have boots with minor speed increase. Let me put that away. Alright, I would say let's use the Plainsrunning ability because it's an active one. And let's have a look how fast we will go. Oh yes, you can know. Oh, amazing. That's really cool. Especially as a warrior. Imagine you come running towards your enemies like that, you know. That's really cool. So the max stack is 3. And let's have a look. When we go inside, this should vanish pretty much. Yeah, and there it goes. Amazing. Let's go on to the next race then. Okay, here we are in the Valley of Spirits in Orgrimmar. Let's have a look at the racial abilities of the Trolls. First we have Beast Slaying, agility increased by 5%, and damage dealt versus beast is also increased by 5%. Then we have Berserking, increases your casting and attack speed based on the amount of health missing. At full health, the speed increase is 10%, with a greater effect up to 50% if you are badly hurt when you activate Berserking last 10 seconds. Also really flavorful. I like the direction Wall is going here. Next we have hunting trophies. Skinning skill is increased by 15. Then we have polearm specialization. Skill with polearms is increased by 5. Then we have dagger specialization. Skill with daggers is increased by 5. Primitive culture. Arcane resistance increased by 1 per level. Then we have regeneration. Health regeneration rate is increased by 10%. 25% of total health regeneration may continue during combat, which is really amazing. This is a passive. And last but not least, we have throwing specialization. Skill with throwing weapons is increased by 5. Alright, there we have it. If you want to have more information about Warcraft, just check out the description down below. And as always, I would really appreciate it if you could like, comment and subscribe. Dislike it if you disliked it. And having said that, guys, until next time, bye bye. I hope you enjoyed the video. Have a nice day, guys. Stay safe out there. Vincent out. Bye bye.